Hi, this is Bennett Tchaikovsky, and welcome to Providing Testing Accommodations. This is my perspective as a college instructor. My disclaimer and copyright notice: the information and opinions in this presentation are those of the author only and not the author's employers or affiliate organizations, including but not limited to the South Orange County Community College District, Irvine Valley College, and California State University at Fullerton. This presentation is copyright 2022 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights are reserved. So a little bit about me. I really went back into teaching in the fall of 2013. I did that for about a year before teaching full-time, which I do right now at Irvine Valley College. I'm also teaching part-time for California State University at Fullerton. The one thing about my classes, which some students like or they don't like, is the fact that I give about 5 to 6 exams per semester for financial managerial accounting, and for intermediate, it's about 4 per semester. Some students really, they don't like the heavy testing, but my experience has been they appreciate it after the fact. So testing is a huge part of what I do. I also really rely on problem-based testing. It takes longer for me to grade, but there's really no better way that I can go through and recommend a student. I just don't believe in multiple choice for accounting. That's my opinion. And by the way, I'm just going to mention this. There are multiple choice questions on the CPA exam, but those things are worded so funky that I think that if you're trying to really teach a student accounting, you're almost better off teaching them the accounting and then letting them learn how to do multiple choice questions when they get to the CPA exam. So let's talk about testing and what this video is all about. And this is why I use problem-based testing. It's essentially able to recommend students for employment. It also has kind of a secondary factor where I teach at Irvine Valley. I have many students where English is a second language, or a third or fourth language. And so for me, it's very, very important that I'm using problem-based math type questions so that the students can easier go through and practice. And when I teach managerial, it's so hard because I have a lot of essay questions. And again, that throws a lot of students off, but they can still do well in the exams. It's just not getting as high of grades. But again, generally use problem-based questions. When it comes to exams, you have to make sure you create a fair playing field. No one's getting extra time in the classroom environment when they're doing it without an accommodation. There's no dictionaries. If a student doesn't know what something means, they need to come up and ask you. And everything is up at the front of the class. I do not allow phones. It's basically, I call it the TSA or the Tchaikovsky Screening Agency. I'm not taking it away from the federal government. Don't think I could ever do that. Yeah, that'd be a new low. But at the same time, if a student has a challenge, we absolutely have to accommodate them because we want our students to be successful. So let's just talk about DSPS, and it has different names at different universities. But Disabled Students Programs and Services is on campus. I know Irvine Valley Colleges very, very well. I'm also have interacted with DSPS at Cal State Fullerton. These organizations are great. They're here to basically be that linkage between the student and the instructor, essentially making sure that when a student says they have a challenge, okay, you need to send them to DSPS. We're not psychologists. We're not psychiatrists. That's the job of DSPS, to go through and look over that paperwork to make sure that the student has the appropriate testing accommodations, or it might be an accommodation that's within the classroom environment. If they need a note taker, if they need to sit in the front of the class, if they need a distracted or reduced testing environment, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get more time on an exam, but they might want to be less distracted. Also, too, it is not up to you to evaluate whether or not a student has a challenge. What you need to be going through and doing is say, provide me a letter. I'm more than happy to help you, but I can't really do anything unless you provide me the paperwork. Now, when it comes to your syllabus, it's very important that you have language that kind of looks like this, like students with disabilities who believe are challenges, who believe they may need accommodations, should contact DSPS as quickly as possible. in order to ensure that if DSPS finds unqualified, the confidential accommodations are made in a timely fashion, right? So you're not going to be told what the student's disability or challenge is. Rather, they're just going to say, okay, this student gets these accommodations, which is fine, right? And so just, at the same time, students don't often realize that if they get a temporary accommodation, they may need to be more proactive in terms of getting the final one. So I had a student, a few semesters ago who was given a temporary accommodation that expired. And so then I kind of jumped in and got a hold of the people at DSPS, and they were able to extend it for that student. So again, it's the right thing to do, right? You don't want to kind of say, oh, you didn't go timely. No, you want to get involved and you want to basically help out that student. It's the right thing to do. Now, dealing with K through 12 versus colleges, and we've got, I'm a parent, I've got two boys who I love very, very dearly. And, in K through 12, there are certain rights that are given to students, and especially for students with learning challenges. And attorneys can get involved, attorneys can get paid. However, at the four-year school or the community college, the rules are very, very different. The first one is FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. I have spoken with parents before, and it's always a mistake. Don't do it. If you're talking to a parent about like, oh, can you give me some advice about Chapman versus Fullerton versus blank? Sure, for accounting, can do that all day. I have no problem talking to parents about that stuff. But when it comes to grades or anything else like that, do not speak to the parent. Just only speak with the student. And one of the things that I had to deal with when I was a chair of business sciences at IDC, and this is again a few years back, a parent, there was an issue with a student, and the student there was something about the accommodation, but the parent, it was a really weird situation. And when you have an issue with an instructor, you have to follow certain rules. And what the parent did was they basically sent a demand letter into the vice president of instruction, and or it may have been somebody else, I can't remember, it was somebody high up. Yeah, I think it was somebody else. But they basically bypassed the whole thing and they started getting lawyers involved. Well, I'm an attorney and I got involved and I basically solved the problem. Okay, so I talked with the instructor, said, okay, are you willing to do X, Y, and Z to get rid of this? I said, no problem. Yeah, that's what I tried to do. And so we resolved it. And then the parent said something like, oh, I want you to pay my legal fees of $5,000. And it's like, well, if you would have called me up beforehand, I would have done it for you for free. And then you could have donated that money to a student and given them a scholarship. I mean, don't hire an attorney when it's a college thing. Now, you may be able to get, if you've exhausted all the normal processes, or if you haven't been given what's, you can file a lawsuit. But before you've exhausted the normal processes at a college, do not go through and hire an attorney, okay, when it comes to the accommodations for DSPS. Rather, go through the system. You have to go through and do it, just because there's not going to be the same rights as going through and doing a K through 12. Okay, now prior to the start of the semester, make sure that you are very, very clear as to a student's needs and ask them to provide you their accommodations letters if they're seeking one. Talk about what the exam rules are. I don't allow dictionaries or any outside material. I do allow a 4-function calculator, right? And this is always an issue because I get students who come in with these monstrosity calculators. Why do I do that? It's because everybody needs to be on the same playing field. If one person gets something and that somebody else doesn't have, that's a huge problem. So again, if they don't understand how something is worded, they can come up and ask you. Now, what a do is that provide the student the accommodation. If the paperwork is appropriately signed off by DSPS, we want to be as supportive as possible to the student, provide the accommodations as listed out in the paperwork provided to the student, upload the exam timely onto a portal. So when you upload a test generally into DSPS, They're going to say, okay, how much time are you giving normal students? What materials can they use? Blank, blank, blank. And basically what I do is I just follow that for the class, and then I let DSPS handle it. And then also, again, they let DSPS proctor the exam. I once made a huge mistake, which I'll talk about just in a moment, which is this: do not extend the class time or start the class early to give a test to a student. I actually did this at one of the community colleges I worked at the very first semester I started teaching, and it had been a while. And by God, I was getting the nastiest looks as an instructor, and kind of rightfully so, because it looks like I'm showing favoritism to a student over somebody else. If you try to proctor exams yourself, you are going to be in a blank storm, and you don't want to do it. Let DSPS handle all the proctoring. And again, never talk with parents. It's not going to be good. Trust me on this. I'm a parent. I wouldn't talk to myself, right? I wouldn't, like if my son was taking my class, which again, well, maybe because I'm half attorney, it might seem okay, but it's just not good. And also do not talk with other students about another student's challenge. Really try to respect the privacy of those students. So, if you go through and you follow these rules with regards to DSPS members, instructors, we are here for the students. Without the students, we would not be here. And I've made this video just because I have some new instructors that are coming on board at Irvine Valley. So this is partially for them, but also at the same time is just to basically make sure that, our students are receiving the accommodations that they need. And I want to thank you for joining me here today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at 1812cpa@gmail.com. Have a great day.